Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the CEC 15 business meeting. It is Thursday, February 16th, 2023. We are meeting on a Thursday rather than a Tuesday because this week was Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day, everyone. I am going to start the meeting at 6:30, call to order, and I'll pass the screen over to Antonia, who will do the roll.
Hey, hello, everybody.
Hi.
Actually, let's have the interpreters announce themselves before we run the roll call. So we have a Bangla interpreter.
Yes, we have two.
Okay, great. Why don't you introduce yourselves?
So this is Awal Zaman. I will be helping with the Bengali interpretation today from English to Bengali. Thank you.
Okay. And would the other Bangla interpreter like to introduce themselves?
Hello, I am Nushan Noeli. I'll be helping for doing Bangla interpreter today.
All right,
Thank
why don't we go to the Mandarin interpreters?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm the Mandarin interpreter. My name is Siu Tao.
Is there a second? Okay, does the second Mandarin interpreter want to introduce themselves or no? Okay, can we have the Spanish interpreters?
Yes, my name is Harold Goodman. Si quiere participar con la presentación en español, favor de marcar al número 347-966-4114 con la clave 927-374-768 hashtag.
Is there a secondary Spanish interpreter that wants to introduce themselves?
Yes, good evening. Thank you. My name is Benito. I will be working with Harold Spanish. Thank you for having me.
Great. Is that everybody? All right. I will call the roll. Camille,
শুভ সন্ধ্যা সবাইকে। আজকে আমাদের CEC 15 এর মিটিং এ সবাইকে স্বাগতম।
Tia Chelsea.
আমি আওয়াল জামান আপনাদেরকে আজকের মিটিং এর বাংলা ইন্টারপ্রিটেশন হেল্প করব।
So she's on her way up. Okay. Vincent Liu. Nana Poku Ajiku.
Present.
Alfred D. Ingenis. Maybe he'll come later. Joseph Alexander.
He sent a message saying he's running late.
He's running late. Okay. Yvonne Bonda. All right. Nancy Randall is absent today. Vanessa Gonzalez Huoka, is she probably late? Late. And Nakia Muhasa Brown has a childcare issue tonight, so she has an excused absence. All right.
So we're only 5. I'm assuming Tia is just going to pop in here in 1 minute, but the first thing on our agenda is the vote on
Minutes. All right. We'll go over to the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at the November 29th calendar minutes? Is there anything anybody would like to propose changes to it, or Tia?
Welcome, Tia. We're just reviewing the note. All right, so. I'll make a
Motion to adopt the minutes.
Yeah, to adopt.
Okay, are there any objections to adopting the minutes? Okay, so the November 29th minutes have been adopted. We will move on to the January 1st business meeting. Sorry, January 10th business meeting minutes. Does anybody have any changes they wish to make?
Shanice, if you're able to drop the link in the chat for those minutes, for both of them.
We have Joe Alexander has just arrived.
So we're reviewing the minutes. We're on to the January 10th. minutes. I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes.
Okay, are there any objections to adopting the January 10th business meeting minutes? Okay, no objections. The minutes are approved. Okay, and we'll turn back to Camille for district updates.
Thank you so much. So again, I just want to welcome everyone to our February 16th business meeting and let you know that the CCEC elections are up and running. So the application window was extended and is now closing February 23rd. So if you have not put in your application, the time is now. In order to run for a seat on an education council, you must have a NICSA account. That's a New York City Schools account to which you have linked all of your children attending New York City public schools. The account must be in your name when you apply. If you do not have a NICSA account or need assistance in registering your children to your existing account, please contact your parent coordinator. There's a setup guide available in multiple languages on the DOE website. As I mentioned in previous meetings, there will be a new seat for a parent of a child in a D75 program. So please spread the word. With questions about the 2023 CCEC elections, you can email elections2023@schools.nyc.gov. I'll drop this in the chat a little bit later, or if somebody could drop that in the chat, that would be great. Just an update on the progress that the WXY team is making. They are working with middle school principals and spoke at the principals conference last week. They are also working on collecting data around outcomes of students. They've been trying to reach the Office of Pupil Transportation about busing data and working on individual school analysis versus across the district with a focus on free and reduced lunch, students in temporary housing, and multilingual learners. The quantitative data will be important as a part of advocacy for this plan in District 15. They are going to be following up with the DOE on testing data to see when that would be available. 6 schools were scheduled for follow-up engagement sessions this week. The WXY is also meeting with various community groups and organizations, including RHI in Red Hook, Voces Cuidadoras in Sunset Park, Vision Futuro, the Chinese American Foundation, the Center for Family Life, and other counselors and schools. WXY will also be meeting with parents and caregivers, teachers, students, and guidance counselors. There's going to be a survey sent to the public as well. And right now, the objectives for these meetings, they are working on a progress update on the status of each recommendation in the D15 diversity plan that includes quantitative and qualitative data. They are identifying potential areas for improvement and if any consequences to the plan. They are trying to understand resource disparities across middle schools, especially for students with marginalized identities. They are also highlighting some celebrated practices within school communities as shared by those school communities, especially those that fall under the value of inclusion and or the inclusion recommendations of the plan. They are summarizing the community's response, feedback, and concerns with a focus on families with marginalized identities, especially families within the priority categories, which are STH, MLL, and FRL. A possible additional objective would be identifying related changes in course offerings available to students and student participation since the diversity plan. Okay, so that was a lot. We'll be hearing more from Superintendent Alvarez on that in the next meeting. So just an update on the citywide wellness committee meeting. I talked about this a little bit in our last meeting, but every 3 years, the DOE is required to do a review of their wellness policy. So we're in that year. This is a mandate from New York State. A committee was formed. You all knew about it. They asked for a volunteer from each CEC. So I am sitting on that committee and we're meeting once a month until June. This month, we discussed physical fitness and what we would want to see during gym classes, recess, outdoor activities, as well as in classroom movement and breaks. So if you would like to send feedback on wellness in schools or have any edits or additions that you would like to see in the DOE wellness policy, please write to me, Camille, CEC15@gmail.com. And I will make sure to include that in our next conversations. There is a CEC meeting coming up on February 28th. This is going to be in person at the Brooklyn New School on Henry Street. There is going to be a Fair Student Funding presentation in addition to the District 15 Superintendent's report and the high school report. Then on March 2nd, we are going to be having a virtual public hearing with the School Construction Authority to review the 5-year capital plan. So please come with your comments, and we've already submitted the list of building needs for the District 15 schools, but if anything else comes up, and this is for the members of the public as well, if you have additional building condition needs at your school or wants, please do bring those to this meeting March 2nd. So it is a public hearing and we want to hear from the public. Okay, so final note. On February 3rd, Senator John Liu, who's the chairperson of the Senate Committee on New York City Education, joined with the Senate Education Committee chairperson, Senator Shelley Mayer, and Senator Robert Jackson, other state legislators, parents, and advocates to oppose Governor Hochul's recent proposal to lift the New York City cap on charter schools. So Antonia and I were there. We were able to speak to the press. If If this proposal is implemented, the change could allow for over 100 new charter schools in New York City, further diverting resources away from traditional public schools. So please write or call your senators and assembly people to give them your opinion about lifting this charter cap or not. We have a guest with us tonight, Lainey Hamison from Class Size Matters, who will speak more to this issue. That is the conclusion of my updates. And if it's okay with everybody, I'm realizing that we probably should have swapped the way the resolutions are on the agenda so that we can just have Lainey speak now. And is that okay? Okay, great. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Miss Lainey Hamison.
Where do I sit? Yeah, that's a good point. So
Why don't you sit here?
You might.
I will move. It has its challenges, but it's working okay so far.
Okay, and is somebody going to do the PowerPoint for me, or should I?
If, is there any way that I could pull it up on here for her so that she can see it?
It's here. It's here. You'll be able to see it. Okay, great. It's projecting to
It
the,
is projected. That is the feed.
oopsie.
And now that is the feed.
Why is that? Why is he the person? There you are.
Yeah, but where's
Oh,
the
but where's the
PowerPoint?
PowerPoint?
Sorry.
Is Shanice? Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, here we go.
Okay, great. So hello, everyone here and beyond. Thank you for inviting me to speak. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history. Does this?
So you're not going to be able to control the PowerPoint.
Okay, all right,
You're just gonna
okay.
have-
So I'm first going to go into a little bit of history on the charter school law because the conditions have changed. We didn't always have charter schools in New York City. The first law that passed that allowed for charter schools was passed in 1998 as a deal with Governor Pataki to raise the salaries of legislators who were against it, especially the Democrats who controlled the assembly at that point. They allowed for 100 charter schools statewide at that point, plus an unlimited number of existing public schools that could turn into charter schools with the agreement of teachers and parents at the school. Not many have converted. So that's really not an issue anymore. Then in 2002, Mayor Bloomberg was elected. He and Chancellor Klein were very strong supporters of charter schools. And they pushed very hard to raise the cap and make other changes, along with Democrats for Education Reform, billionaire hedge funders, and the Robin Hood Foundation. No one's here is seeing my PowerPoint. Is that okay?
I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, we can see it. Yes.
You know,
It's all on the PowerPoint, so I think people might want to see it as I talk.
That should be broadcasting. This should be.
Because there are a lot of facts and figures here, and I want people in this meeting to be able,
This
to
is
see it.
This is it.
yeah, but it's
this-
not on the screen.
No, that we're not using that.
But is anybody here going to be able to see the PowerPoint?
Oh, in the room.
Yeah, these are the most, probably you're the majority of people watching this. So no, you have no way for
We do
people,
not have a way to access that.
huh? Really?
I mean, we could log into the Zoom,
They
but
could log
I'm
into
never
the Zoom.
able to get.
All right, if you guys don't care to see the PowerPoint, it's got a lot of numbers and Unless you want to look at it this way. I mean, I have my presentation.
Then,
printed out.
okay.
Can you see it?
All right, I guess that's possible, but then they won't see you. But,
No, I don't care about that.
okay, all right. I don't know, is that, can you see that?
So then, in 2007, the legislature raised the charter cap to 200, with 50 more reserved for New York City, and in 2021, New York City hit its current cap, though some charter schools already authorized have not yet opened. So next slide, if they change.
No, you can't do it from here because Shanice needs to do it. Ideally, we should have had this printed out for everybody. Ahead of time.
Can we go to the next
Is that
slide?
the right-
Okay.
Timeline of charter cap part 2.
Yeah, so
Oh.
in 2010, the statewide charter cap was raised again to 460 with a maximum of 114. For New York City in 2015, the charter school subcap for New York City was increased, adding another 20. In 2017, the legislature added 20 zombie charters. Zombie charters mean charters that were authorized but never opened or have been closed. So that allowed for 22 more. And so when Bloomberg was elected in 2002, there were only 2,400 students enrolled in New York City charters. In 2003, Chancellor Klein had meetings with a lot of top charter management officials and convinced them to expand their networks. And as part of that strategy, he said he would give them space in New York City public school buildings, which had never been done before. And to my knowledge, has never been done voluntarily by any district anywhere else in the United States. He said he would give them space for only $1 a year.
You guys want to look over here? Because like, it's really weird for the public to not see you, like they're just seeing this side of the room, which doesn't.
How many people are online?
Why don't you look?
40?
I mean,
You
we
think
want,
they'd rather see my face than my
Yeah.
wonderful PowerPoint?
no, the PowerPoint's there. It's
It's
just
next to it. All right.
In case somebody needs to.
All right. So we're on slide 3. Can we switch? And so he held he and Bloomberg held a press conference in 2003 in a Harlem public school announcing the first co-location of a KIPP charter in a Harlem public school building. By 2012, the total number of charter school students had increased to 59,000, and that number is now over 140,000 students. So you can see that the cap has been raised several times. The number of students has expanded very fast. So we've been involved in fighting charter co-locations for a long time. In next slide. It did move? Not here. Is somebody? Okay,
There we go.
it works there.
There we go.
All right, so someone asked the IBO, I don't know whether it was us or someone else, to estimate how much money charter schools actually got for being co-located in public schools, because not only do they get space free, they get electricity, they get janitorial help, they get food services, all that stuff. And they estimated that in 2008, that amounted to about $2,700 per student. Now, we read the state education law, and at that time, there was a provision in the law that said districts could lease charters, public school buildings and grounds, but that any such contract shall provide such services or facilities at cost. So in July 2011, we, along with other groups, including New York's Communities for Change, the New York City Parents Union, and about 25 parents sued the DOE because that $1 a year clearly did not reflect the total cost of charter schools, which at that point, co-located charters, which at that point was costing about $100 million a year. We had a sympathetic judge, but the progress of the lawsuit was very slow because at one point the judge was appointed by Cuomo to a higher court. So when we had to get another judge and we started from scratch. And by the time our lawsuit was heard, shortly afterwards, Cuomo and the legislature changed the law in 2014. And so they took that provision out of the law and they said something quite radical, which was that New York City had to provide space in public schools for all new charters and expanding charters, or help pay for their rent in private space. We are the only district in the state with this obligation and the only district in the entire country with this obligation. So in February 1st, Governor Hochul announced as part of her proposed budget that she wanted to raise the charter school cap again by about 100. At least she wasn't raising the cap, but she was eliminating all the regional subcaps for New York City. So plus she wanted to allow for more zombies, about 15 more zombies, which would allow altogether 100 new charter schools in New York City. We believe that because there's a loophole in the law, and we've already seen it used by many charter schools, that when they get authorized to be a middle school, then they expand to a high school or to an elementary school, and that is all allowed under the cap. There was a lawsuit about that recently, and the judge found against the lawsuit that yes, under the law, every charter school that's authorized at any grade level can expand to all other grade levels. Therefore, that 100 charters could actually be 300 charters, which would more than double the number of charter schools in New York City, which is now at 275. We already pay this year about $2.7 billion for charter schools, not counting the space and services that they get for free or the rental subsidies. So that amount could more than double, actually, potentially over time, if all the 100 charters were started and they expanded to 300. So New York City, as I mentioned, is the only district in the entire state in the country that has to pay for charter rent in private spaces if they don't give them space in public schools, where we have some of the highest rental costs in the entire country. The cost of these rental subsidies is about $166 million this year, with 60% of that is supposed to be reimbursable by the state, but that number is increasing fast every year. OMB has estimated that the cost of 100 charters, not the 300, but the cost of 100 charters would cost an additional $1.3 billion. Coincidentally, in the same memo, they said that's also their estimate for the cost for the new class size mandate under the law. So 100 more charters, reducing class sizes in all schools. Which would you prefer? And so we, of course, estimate that it potentially could be 3 times that amount, as much as $3.9 billion annually. So next slide, we're actually far behind. Go on. Another slide. Another slide. So one thing I discovered a couple of years ago, there was a Wall Street Journal op-ed that said, of course, raise the cap on charters. We need more charters in New York City, and no district suffers because we get reimbursement from the state for the expansion of charters. And I wrote a letter to the Wall Street Journal saying that's a mistake. We don't get reimbursed for this expansion. And they pointed me to something called charter transition aid, which I had never heard of before. And they actually changed the op-ed, which was incredible because that's really hard to do, to get them to change it. So it turns out every other district in the entire state of New York gets partial reimbursement when charter schools expand, except for New York City. And the Education Law Center wrote a brief on this recently, and they hypothesized that this happened because Bloomberg wanted to raise the cap very fast. And the state legislature did not want to pay the transitional aid for New York City, which would cost them money. So he said, okay, you can exempt us from that transitional aid. And for the last decade or so, ever since between 2011 and 2022, because we're the only district in the state that is exempted, we have lost $2.62 billion from the state. So here are 2 ways in which we're screwed by the state. Number one, we're the only one that has to provide space or pay for the rent. We're the only ones that are exempt from transitional aid. And by the way, we have by far the highest number of charter schools in the state. So there are other issues involved in this proposal that could have a very big negative impact. For example, more co-locations could deny many public schools of the space needed to lower class size. And in fact, if you look at the recent charter co-location proposals that were made by the DOE, they are based on something called the instructional footprint, which explicitly says we are assuming that the current class sizes in the public schools will remain forever. We did 2 reports in 2019 and 2020 showing that public schools that shared buildings with charters were owed millions of dollars in matching funds for facility enhancements. As part of the charter law that passed in 2014, the legislature said that, first of all, the chancellor has the right to reject any proposal by a co-located charter to revamp their space. However, if he gives them permission and they revamp their space, every dollar they spend on improving facilities, including air conditioners, including repainting, including all sorts of things like that, every dollar has to be matched in the same year by the DOE for the public school. No chancellor at that point has ever rejected a request from a charter school. We got that confirmed by the DOE. Even though schools like Success spend hundreds of thousands of dollars repainting and reflooring every single year. And we found that in no year has a public school ever gotten the funds that they deserved in that year. We used a spreadsheet straight from the DOE that was on the City Council website. As a follow-up for the report, we got this city controller to write a letter. I asked for an audit. They said no. They wrote a letter. We got a completely different spreadsheet at that point that was sent to the controller. And in that, they counted all the money, I think, that was ever spent on renovations of any of these schools, but still they did not match. So from fiscal year 2014 to 2019, only 4 schools out of 812 instances had ever received the matching funds in the same year, and not a single public school received the same cumulative amount as its co-located charter school over the 6-year period. In the second spreadsheet, we found that 127 co-located public schools were owed a total of $15.5 million. One of them is in your district. In fact, the school that was owed the most, PS 368, which is a District 75 school in District 14 and District 15 in 2 locations, was missing over $984,000 in matching funds, co-located with 2 different branches of Success Academy. Success Academy Bed-Stuy 1 in District 14 was missing about $400,000. The branch co-located with Cobble Hill Success Academy was missing about $600,000. And then I asked the priority list, District 75 Citywide Council had noted that the PS 368 in District 14 needed air conditioning in the cafeteria, gym, and auditorium, an upgraded computer lab, security system, plumbing, and a sink in the nurse's office, and better Wi-Fi. And then I looked at the building condition assessment survey for PS 368 in District 15, lacked ventilators in several classrooms, had broken seats in the auditorium, among other issues. I don't know if those same problems exist. This was a report done in 2020. Also, what we looked at in our reports is the amount of money the DOE spent on charter leases. We found from the spreadsheets that in fiscal 2019, DOE had overspent by $21 million compared to their legal obligation on charter lease costs. We also found that DOE spent over $11 million on rent for charter schools whose buildings were owned by the charter management organization or by their own foundation, which is legal under the law, but pretty shocking. So for example, Success Academy owns a condominium space in Hudson Yards, which is the most expensive real estate project in the entire nation, and we pay for a big chunk of their rent. So in other words, the charter management organization charges the charter school rent, and we found that they had increased their rent on their own charter school substantially in 1 year. This was done by several that had owned their own buildings, but also some, including Brooklyn Hebrew School, that did not own their own building. In 1 year, they hugely increased their own rent to charge it to DOE. And there is no one who's looking after how much they're charging themselves the rent. There needs to be oversight over that issue, because literally they could charge themselves anything. On March 15th, I again tried for audit and decided not to ask myself, since they didn't listen to me the last time. Now Brad Lander is the controller. Senator John Liu, Senator Robert Jackson, and Councilmember Rita Joseph, the chair of the New York City Council Education Committee, sent a letter, this is a year ago, to Brad Lander asking him to audit these two issues. And as far as we know, this audit has not yet started and may never happen. Maybe you'd like to ask him as well. So one of the issues that comes up all the time is charter schools say they need more charters because they have long waiting lists. So Chalkbeat recently found that 58% of the city's charter schools have lost enrollment over the past 3 years, not counting the new charter schools that opened or closed during that time. These charter waiting lists are unconfirmed by any independent audits and likely inaccurate, because they likely contain many duplicates, because people can apply to as many charter schools as they like at once. Some charter schools, like those affiliated with Success Academy, spend millions of dollars on advertising and marketing every year. And yet this year, what we noticed was that Success was recruiting more students into late October for the current school year, which shows a lack of demand, that they were desperately looking for students into the end of October. A research study revealed that only about 50% of the students who get into Success Academy in the first round that win the lottery actually end up attending the school, which implies that a lot of the people on that waiting list don't actually want to go either. And what we learned this year is that Success is also recruiting students from outside the city to attend New York City charter schools, where theoretically we would have to give them space or pay for their rent, revealing a lack of demand in New York City. They are allowed to do that, by the way, in the law as well. I foiled for the home addresses from SUNY. I haven't gotten, they said they don't have that data. I foiled the Board of Regents. We'll see if we get that data, if any of it exists. So other problematic issues with charter schools, I'm sure you know many of these things already. Many charter schools have high rates of student attrition, including Success, where 75% of schools leave from kindergarten on. About 50% of students who make it to high school, their high school, leave before graduation, which is really kind of shocking. Most charter schools have lower rates of enrollment rates of high needs students, including English language learners and students with disabilities. Many charters are known for their excessive disciplinary policies. This is for the next slide. Okay. And pushing out students who do not comply with their strict disciplinary codes. Many New York City charter schools, including those affiliated with Uncommon, KIPP, and Success, have been criticized for racist practices. And a recent report from the Civil Rights Project at UCLA revealed that charter schools in New York City are even more intensely segregated than district public schools. Next slide. So what can you as a CEC or individual parents do? You can pass a resolution urging your legislators to oppose the governor's proposal to increase the number of charter schools. I think you're considering that kind of resolution tonight. And there are other things that need changing in the law. The legislature should repeal the law that obligates DOE to provide space to charter schools, or give them or pay for their rent. As I mentioned, only district in the country that has to do this. I urge the legislator to make New York City eligible for state charter transition aid from now on, and be provided with the $2.6 billion in past aid that we were unfairly denied. Ask them to eliminate the loophole in the law so that they can't add grade levels, because we are facing a potential onslaught of new charter schools, whether or not this cap is raised. Probably, I haven't quite figured it out, but I know that new charter schools are opening up There's one in District 14 that's opening up. That's an elementary school for Uncommon that I guess is an expansion for a middle school that was already authorized. So I don't know how many more, but I think hundreds more probably could be expanded even without the cap being raised. So that's really important, is to close that lawsuit. And we have an email campaign that allows individuals to send this message to the governor and the legislatures. These are other things that should be needed in the law to strengthen accountability and transparency. All charter schools should be legally obligated to adhere to the same disciplinary and suspension rules. Currently, they are not. They are allowed to expel students, and they don't have the same requirements in terms of procedures for suspensions that public schools are required under state law. All boards of charter management organizations should be subject to open meetings law, which they are not. These are the organizations that really are the decision makers. So there, for example, Success has one corporation that is theoretically are their charter schools, but it's really pro forma. The charter management organization is a separate board that makes all the policy decisions, and that board is not subject to open meetings law. There are many bills that are listed here that cover some of these issues, not all of them. We actually have a charter omnibus bill that we recommended that Assembly Member Harvey, now I've forgotten his last name, Harvey in District Lower East Side. Anyway, he is supposedly submitting that bill. It's supposed to be online very soon, but it's not. I will let people know once it is, because one of the problems is there's so many different charter school bills. We've gone to some of the sponsors asking them to combine their bills in one, and for whatever reason, they don't want to do that. So also we need audits. The law needs to be changed to allow both the state controller and the city controller to perform performance audits as well as financial audits. That means they should be able to look at their practices, their waiting lists. They should be looking at their suspension and push out practices. All those things are not currently allowed under the law. Only financial audits are allowed under the law. We would love it if your CEC could urge the city controller to go ahead with the audit that I spoke about, with the matching funds to public schools and also the spending on rental subsidies. There are other things in our report we found that the way DOE rents buildings for charters, some of them are not, they are not getting any reimbursement from the state because of the way they're doing it, that they could get millions of more dollars if they rent it in a different way. So that's my presentation. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for this one. This is very comprehensive. So a few questions. I think I just want to take that back a little bit and sort of understand the reason why the existence of charter school.
The reason for charter schools?
The existence. So this school of thought that it gives children that are in bad neighborhoods, that have bad schools, the opportunity to go to have a better education. And that's why the field is level, right? So historically, if you see the target of charter schools, they usually target certain districts and certain neighborhoods and certain children just because they feel that is the opportunity they're going to have in order to have a better education than the public school system is offering them. If you could talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, well,
some of the flaws that are in this argument, I appreciate it.
a couple of things. First of all, if you look at where charter schools are expanding, now they're expanding into all sorts of neighborhoods, like, you know, wealthy Manhattan neighborhoods, District 15, Cobble Hill. They are not at all restricted to what you would call high poverty neighborhoods. Second of all, because it takes so much money, and in our case, space away from the public schools, what you're doing is you're essentially undermining the opportunities of the kids in the public schools by supporting, financing, and subsidizing the expansion of an alternative system, which, by the way, is not under democratic control, is run by private boards of hedge funders, most of whom do not send their public kids to public schools at all. And by the way, have a lot of very unfair and abusive practices. Not all of them do by any sake of, any sense, but the ones that have expanded most rapidly, whether you're talking about Success or Uncommon or even KIPP, have been widely cited for having no excuses disciplinary policies, which are extremely repressive. And if you talk to New York City public school parents or charter, I mean, I've talked to a lot of former charter school parents in New York City and helped them with complaints and lawsuits and the rest. And these are the most embittered parents in New York City, where we have a lot of embittered parents. They are absolutely furious because their children, whether they have special needs or for whatever reason, could not make the test scores or could not actually conform to the very rigid disciplinary codes, were pushed out in ways that were very, very harmful, or repeatedly suspended in ways that are actually illegal if you try to do it in a public school. And so therefore, if you want to create a separate system of better schools, why not do it within the public school system? Why not create better schools where we have a democratic system of governance, where we have strict rules, where kids are not being abused right and left, and where the funding is going to the neediest kids, which often are the kids with special needs, right? So what happens as a result is the kids who either have special needs or for whatever reason can't conform or don't get great test scores are expelled from the charter schools, pushed into the public school system, which then has less funding and less space to meet their needs. And so what you're doing is creating more disparities and more segregation across the city in ways that I don't think we want to really support.
Thank you for that.
No other questions? Anyone from the?
Yes, hello.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Legislature is doing to repeal the charter school laws about sharing space and reimbursement and transitional aid.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone's doing anything about transitional aid. I think you guys wrote a letter to Adams.
Every year we said we want transitional aid, and we talk to our legislators about it, and they say, tell your mayor has to ask for it.
Harvey Epstein, that's the name of the guy who's working with me on he said, I asked him, is it true that New York City will never get transitional aid unless Mayor Adams asks for it? And he said, absolutely right. I don't know why that's different from the other reforms we want, which I'm sure Adams doesn't support either, but he said yes. So Adams would have to make a very strong case for it. He went yesterday, he went in front of the state legislature to talk about the governor's budget and what he didn't like. He said it's unfair. He doesn't, the raising the cap, it was surprising because he is a charter school supporter. It's unfair to raise the cap unless you give us more money, because it will cost us $1.3 billion a year. He also complained about the class size mandate, which he said cost us $1.3 billion a year. But he didn't make any pitch for transitional aid. He didn't make any pitch to eliminate the obligation to provide space or pay for rent. But if you heard the explanation that the chancellor has given for co-locations, he complains about it. He says, well, I really don't want to do these co-locations, but the state makes us pay for private rent. And so why should we waste that money when we have space in the public schools, which we don't really have the space, but anyway. So, a lot of these things are going to be very difficult to get past without the mayor's support, but I think we should try anyway. Because they're important.
Would pressure from Brad make that more likely?
I think Brad did write a letter on that one particular issue of transitional aid, or didn't he write a letter to the mayor? Or he wrote a letter, or
like this audit that you're requesting.
Audit, he can do that.
Yeah.
He doesn't need the mayor. He doesn't need the mayor's.
Would his audit
help pressure the mayor. I mean, he
Well, I
kind of
think-
went on a tour with his federal
Yeah,
federal aid audit, and that sort of, you know, it got a lot of press.
I think it would help. I think it
Yeah.
definitely would help because it would show not only is the amount increasing every year, but there's really nothing happening to check what the charter schools are charging the DOE, especially when they own their own facilities. And I think
It's
it's,
also pretty flabbergasting and, you know, could be a potential campaign issue, obviously, so.
yeah, I think it's flabbergasting. I think it's shocking. And
Just like with the federal money, you know, people got it. People were like, wow, we're leaving money on the table. You know, he really laid it out.
well, we're
pretty
not leaving
clearly.
money on the table with the federal money. We're just not spending it as rapidly.
Right.
as
but
we
then-
could.
But then it's gonna go away.
It will go away
Yeah.
eventually. I can't believe that they're not going to spend it before the
Okay.
time, but
Well-
whatever. Yeah. No, I mean, any help, I think an audit is more than desirable at this
Yeah, I
point,
think
considering
he
we've
knows
put
how to do it.
so much hours into, you know, showing these incredible waste of money that
Yeah.
goes on and the overspending that goes on. And I think an audit would be very much a good thing to have at this
Yeah.
point to bring attention to this issue. Yeah.
This is his home district. Maybe we could.
I think we should contact him and let him know that we're considering the resolution, asking him to do it. Unless he does it.
The that request was in the original resolution I sent you guys. I don't know whether it's still in there or not.
This resolution that we're about to read?
It's it's
Okay.
in it that
Yeah.
the controller should audit.
Right.
Yeah, unless you took it out. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's in there.
It's exactly how you.
I put everything in there that I could think of.
One question. We see a lot of numbers here, right? It's hard to visualize.
Yeah, I know. I should have made a graph, but I didn't have the time.
And some of these numbers too, there are a lot that we have numbers, what about 20, 75 students. When we use our money applied to students, do you have a number on how much money we spend on each student in public school versus charter school? Because their size different, and to make a meaningful comparison, you have to really look at the money spent on each student. You have
Well,
to-
IBO has not, I mean, we have the per student amount, which the charter school people will say is less. But I haven't really analyzed it because a lot of money in the DOE budget goes out to charter schools, goes out to private schools, goes out for a lot of things that are not necessarily. But I don't know of any estimate that's been done recently of the co-located charter school students and how much they get. That last estimate was done, and what was it, in 2011 or even before that, so a decade ago. So someone would have to do that analysis all over again to see the co-located charters, whether they get more or less money from the city in terms of the subsidies than, or even the ones in rental space. I don't know.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking this is because from what I know, the money that's spent on each student in charter school is substantially lower than the money spent on each student in public school. And at the same time, if you look at the state test results, right, the students on charter school actually on average, actually outperform students in public school. That's another reason why more and more parents are interested in charter school, right? And if you look at the data from 2020 to 2021, enrollment for charter school has increased 7.3%. It's actually enrolled, they actually stay there, not the project. They actually enrolled, and among this Asian increased the most, 15% increase, and Black increased by Black student at 4.9%, and Hispanic increased by 8.7%. These are the people we see that why parents are interested in charter. I don't think from this number, I personally see the demands are there, right? And another myth I have seen is about the students with disability and our students. Because I'm from immigrant family, so.
Because what? What about the else?
Immigrant community, so
Yeah.
our students is the one that I'm paying more attention to. In District 15, right, 21 students, 21% of students in charter school are actually student with disability, and 14% of students in charter are L students. There are some that about they are not enrolling these kind of students, but they are, So these are things I just want to point out because
You're saying that they have equal numbers of special ed students and L students in charter schools as in the city public school system.
I'm not saying equal, I'm not doing comparison. I'm just talking about the number of percentage of students. I'm using D15 since we are in District 15. D15.
Oh, in District 15.
For District 15. We have 21% student with disability and 14% L in the charter school. I do see that some of demand there. So what are not
They have practically no, sort of severely disabled District 75 type students that have, are in self-enclosed classes, self-contained classes. And if you're a parent with all the time, parents, charter schools say, sorry, we can't serve your students, your child because of special needs, and pushes them out all the time. It is very, very common. So I would hope that you would speak to a former charter school parent in District 15 or anywhere, because they do not feel that their kids are treated fairly, and they don't feel that their kids are given a fair chance. So what can I say?
If you look at Sunset Park, right, like this looking, I only see one charter school available for Sunset Park. And it's only that school is it's bilingual, and it's only available from K to 3. It's concerning because if I enroll my kids to charter school, I would choose school with K to 5 because
That charter school has the right to expand to 5. So
I have to temper my kids out of the school and then for another 2 years, right? What I'm saying is there are last lack of accessibility, especially Sunset Park area, to the charter school. And if you look at the map, there's a lot around this area, but not too many.
Well, there aren't any in D20 at all.
Yes, that's another problem, right?
But
So,
why is it a problem?
there's a lot of accessibility and there's a lot of demand in the area, and those kind of demand are not being filled.
well, any K through 3 school can expand to 12th grade. So I don't know what the problem is.
It's new. They haven't gotten that grade band yet. They've only opened a few years ago, so they don't.
So what's the
They
problem?
haven't moved up. So I'm sure they will have.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. But my point is that there's a lack of access in the area that I'm pointing out, and there are parents who want it. According to a survey on Democrat for Education Reform, they found that 64% of parents are in favor of charter school.
Which survey is this?
Democrat for Education.
Yeah, they're the charter school lobby. So the UFT came out with a different survey a couple
Yeah.
days ago with different results.
Yeah, we all have different positions. Right? You have your position, I have my position.
Okay.
Right? You can be.
Yeah, but they're.
We can dispute this. All I'm
Well, that's what a
pointing out
lobbyist
is
is.
Oh.
some of the myth and some of the data, and it's lacking from the present. I appreciate you doing all this presentation, right? I feel that a lot of data we have to see on 2 sides rather than 1 side, so that everyone can see the bigger picture. I'm sure some of you understand they are demanding, so that's what I would like to point out. And I understand others, you have different opinions. So let's put it there for now.
And
Okay.
I'll speak on this. I speak as somebody who works, as you all know, in foster care. I work at the highest level of care with kids in our city that have experienced unimaginable abuse and trauma. And if I had $1 for every time I've seen children as young as pre-K harassed because they're not, they're star learners in these charter programs, And to the point of being just pulled out of the school because I can't keep leaving work to go get my kid. It's unconscionable that the way they treat unrepresented and marginalized kids and families. They are a profit center. There are 2 points of view. There's the point of view of everyday New Yorkers, and there's the point of view of hedge fund managers who are really good at PR and selling a bill of goods to vulnerable people who are hoping the best for their kid. And these people snatch that up. It's the same people that raid our pension funds and the same people that, you know, thrive on these broken communities. And this is the solution to desperate poverty is not these people, it's the cause of this desperate poverty, is those types of people. And that's all.
I also happened to look at an audit of Success Academy. One of their corporations has a cash balance of $200 million in, you know, excess sitting in their bank account or somewhere. I mean, I'm not great at reading audits, but they raise huge amounts of money, and they could easily afford to buy their own buildings and run their own schools without any public subsidy whatsoever. And I really object, because the public schools are run by the public, for the public, and we should not be diverting billions of dollars into private corporate hands. Even if those schools were not abusive to kids, I wouldn't support it. But they are abusive, especially the fastest growing charter chain is Success, and they want to continue growing. They are the hardest pushing, and they are very, very abusive to kids. I know, you know, I have a friend whose kid was, you know, had to be picked up all the time for disciplinary in the middle of the day, never called a suspension, which in and of itself is illegal. So they don't actually report their suspensions. And she was getting a degree, and she had to drop out of school, out of college, to pick her kids up every day. And it really was very, very damaging to the whole family's economic existence. And this is a story you hear over and over and over again. So anyway. Yeah.
One more question.
Oh, there's a question in the chat. I will let Yvonne go. Oh, you can't get it, it doesn't.
Here, roll on over here.
I am also an immigrant and English learner, and in terms of transparency, do you know if there is a place somewhere where we can get information about Success Academy, number of schools, number of students, amount of rent per year, and all the other companies? There is something like immigrant families could easily access to find out this information and have the knowledge of.
It wouldn't be in one place. You'd have to look lots of different places, but there's something called the demographic snapshot, which is it's not current, it's for last year. But there you can check out all the numbers in terms of the enrollment of Success Academy and what kind of students they serve. And then there's separate spreadsheets that you can look at the reimbursement that they get, the tuition reimbursement, not the charter rent reimbursement. We've been looking for that on the City Council website. It's supposed to be there every year. The charter rent spreadsheets have not been posted for the last 2 years. I reached out to the City Council finance staff. They said they didn't know why they weren't posted. They were going to try to get the DOE to post them. It's hard to gather all that information. It's a lot of work, and a lot of it is missing.
It's incredible that there's such amount of money, and it's so difficult to find out the basic information about this.
Yeah, how much are we paying in rent for charter schools in New York City this year? We do not know.
I run into Instagram. There is an account that it says that is I survived Success Academy. Yeah, very interesting story.
Yeah, they have that for KIP, they have it for Uncommon, they have that for Achievement First.
You find it in that way, but it's so difficult to find. Where is the money?
Yeah. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. Oh, there is a question? Oh, okay. Wait.
His hand up. Oh, is there something?
Oh, hi. Thanks. I actually have a question. Yeah, this is Carlos. Appreciate it.
Okay, so
Do you
I'm
have
gonna
time
put
to
this,
take a
I'm
question?
gonna. I'm gonna-
One second, Carlos, we're gonna
Okay, I can,
raise the volume so we can hear.
all right. We can hear him now.
Okay, fantastic. First of all, as a father in District 15, thank you for the presentation. I found it very persuasive and very compelling.
Good.
So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And I wanted to ask the presenter if she is affiliated with any organization that us parents could become affiliated with.
Class size matters.
Class size matters.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to my website, www.classsizematters.org.
Okay, fantastic. Another questions?
Oh, yeah, and I also co-host a radio show on WBAI and a podcast called Talk Out of School.
I'll be looking it up. Thank you. Will this PowerPoint presentation be shared publicly?
Yes.
We'll put it on the CEC.
Yeah, and
website.
I'll post it on my website as well.
Okay, fantastic. And lastly, I know that the committee here is going to vote on the resolution that is on this subject. And of course, you directed us to write our assembly people and our senators about Governor Hochul's proposal. But what else do you recommend? Who else do you recommend that us parents write to in regards to these matters? Anything pertinent?
Governor Hochul and your legislators, your state senator and assembly member. And if you go to my website, there is a link to an email that automatically sends an email to them. But you can also call them on the phone because that makes more of an impression than an email in many cases.
Right.
I don't know who District 15 legislators are. Who are they? I just can't think. Joanne Simon. I'm sure she's on the right side.
Okay. Well, again, thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, knock on wood, don't think the cap is going to be raised, but we really want these other changes in the law that are just as important. And so if we can get a groundswell of everybody yelling and screaming and saying, you know, close the loopholes on charter schools so that they can't start 3 times as many charters as they've been authorized for. Let us get transition aid. Don't make us pay for their rent. All those things would be really, really useful, I think, for the future.
Thanks so much.
Here you can use the next.
Oh, okay, so are we reading this resolution? Is that what is, okay?
We're at 15 minutes.
All right, yeah, we kind of are over time here. All right, I'll read the draft resolution. In opposition to raising the New York City charter school cap and instead in favor of limiting charter costs to the DOE budget and ensuring more oversight and accountability. And thank you to Lainey for providing this this resolution. Oh, good. Thank you, Shanice, for putting it up on the screen. Whereas Governor Hochul has proposed to allow about 100 additional charter schools in New York City, even though the legal charter cap has been met, by eliminating the regional limits and by adding the number of previously authorized charters known as zombie charters, which have closed or had their charters revoked. Whereas if enacted, this proposal could potentially add 300 more charter schools in New York City, since every charter school, whether elementary, middle, or high school, is allowed to expand to all grade levels. Whereas New York City already has 275 charter schools. The vast majority of those authorized in the state. Whereas the total funding diverted from the New York City DOE public school budget is already substantial and growing each year, currently approximately 2.69 billion, not counting the space and services that co-located New York City charter schools receive for free. Whereas New York City charter schools that are sited in private space also receive subsidies from DOE to help pay for their rental costs that this year totals an estimate 166 million, with 60% of that reimbursable by the state. Whereas the real cost to DOE's budget of charter schools is thus likely over 3 billion annually. Whereas this proposal could more than triple the number of charter schools in New York City if the 100 expand to new grade levels, i.e. elementary, middle, or high school, that could cost DOE an additional 3 billion per year or more. Whereas New York City is the only school district in the entire state and the entire nation that is obligated to help subsidize the rent for charter schools if they are not provided space in public school buildings. Whereas New York City has been denied over 2.6 billion in state charter school transitional aid between 2011 and 2022, the only school district in the state so exempted. Whereas given the need to lower class size according to the new state law, which mandates class size reduction starting next fall, charter expansion could deprive our public schools that opportunity. Whereas two Class Size Matters reports on the cost of charter rent in 2019 and 2020 show that in fiscal year 2019, DOE overspent on charter lease costs by over 21 million compared to their legal obligation. And in fiscal year 2020, DOE spent over 11.6 million on rent for charter schools whose buildings were owned by their charter management organizations or other affiliated organizations. And that in some of those cases, the CMO had appeared to sharply increase their own rent, apparently to receive more reimbursement from DOE. Whereas 58% of the city's charter schools have lost enrollment over the past 3 years, not including charter schools that opened or closed during that time. Whereas the claims made of high demand and large waiting lists at charter schools are unconfirmed by any independent audits and likely inaccurate as they include many duplicates. Whereas charter schools such as those affiliated with Success Academy spend millions on advertising and marketing efforts in order to recruit more applicants. Whereas a research study revealed that only about 50% of the students who win the lottery to attend Success Academy charters choose to enroll, making their waiting list claims even more dubious. Whereas Success Academy was still urging more families to apply to their schools through October of the current school year, revealing a shortage of students in many of their schools. Whereas Success recruits students outside the city for their charter schools, revealing a relative lack of demand in New York City. Whereas many charter schools exhibit high rates of student attrition, including at Success, where 75% of students leave from kindergarten on, about 50% of students who make it to high school leave before graduation. Whereas most New York City charter schools have far lower enrollment rates of high needs students, including English language learners and students with disabilities. Whereas many New York City charter schools are known for their excessive disciplinary policies and pushing out students who do not comply with their strict disciplinary codes. Whereas many New York City charter schools, including those affiliated with Uncommon, KIP, and Success, have been criticized for their racist practices. Whereas a recent report from the Civil Rights Project at UCLA revealed that charter schools in New York City are even more intensely segregated than district public schools. Be it resolved that CEC 15 strongly urges the legislature to oppose the governor's proposal to increase the number of charter schools in New York City, either by eliminating the regional caps or allowing authorization of the zombie charters. Be it resolved that instead, we urge the legislature to repeal the law that obligates DOE to provide space to charter schools and public schools or help pay for their rent, the only district in the nation with this onerous requirement. Be it resolved that, in addition, the legislature shall make New York City eligible for state charter transition aid from now on and be provided with the $2.62 billion in past transition aid that was unfairly denied. Be it resolved that the legislature shall eliminate the loophole allowing a charter school to expand to additional grade levels outside of the category that it was originally authorized to serve, whether that be elementary, middle, or high school. Be it resolved that the law should be amended to allow both New York State Comptroller and New York City Comptroller to perform performance audits on the charter sector, including auditing their claims of wait lists and their practices of pushing out students. Be it resolved that CEC 15 will ask the New York City Comptroller to audit the DOE spending on rental subsidies for charter schools, especially those whose buildings are owned by their CMO or other affiliated organization, to ensure that they are not inflating reimbursement from the DOE. Be it resolved that CEC 15 will also ask the New York City Comptroller to audit the spending of DOE on matching funds to public schools co-located with charters for facility enhancements, an amount that is supposed to match the spending of the co-located charters for that purpose. And yet the CSM reports of 2019 and 2020 found that the co-located public schools were owed millions of dollars by the DOE. Be it resolved that all charter schools must be legally obligated to adhere to the same disciplinary and suspension policies that public schools are required to follow under state law. Be it resolved that the law should be strengthened so that no charter school can add grade levels outside of the grade levels that its category of school usually serves, whether elementary, middle, or high school grades. Be it resolved that the law shall require the boards of all charter management organizations to be subject by the law to open meetings law. Be it resolved that the following bills to strengthen the accountability and transparency of charter schools shall be approved by the legislature and signed into law by the governor, along with the same bills in the assembly. S4200, Hoylman's bill, which increasing with transparency and limiting charter co-locations to 3 years. S1395, which is John Liu's bill, providing the Board of Regents with final say over charter approvals and reauthorizations. S2171, also John Liu's bill, requiring the appointment of an independent fiduciary upon the dissolution of a charter school. S355, Jackson's bill, requiring more accountability for charter schools in multiple ways. S2137, Liu's bill, repealing the requirement that NYC must help pay for private space rented by charter schools. S2173, Salazar's bill, allowing the state comptroller to audit New York City charter schools. And S2292, Mayor's bill, including school districts and in New York City community school districts in the approval process for issuing any new charter schools where charter enrollment is already above 5% of the total public school enrollment. Okay, that's the resolution.
I have some things.
You have some things.
Okay, so one thing on the last page. The second, be it resolved that all charter schools must be legally obligated to adhere to the same disciplinary and suspension policy that public schools are required to follow under state law. So that would be an ask of the legislature or NICEAD, or who do you think? And I know Lainey just left, but we may as well try to figure it out.
It's state education law. So it's
Okay,
a
so
state
this is
matter.
The legislature. And then the next be it resolved about the grade expansions and elementary, middle, or high school.
Mhm.
I think I'm trying to understand what the difference is between this one on page 2, third from the bottom, and that one. Like they kind of read.
They're the same. Okay, wait a minute. Third from the bottom, be it resolved that the legislature should eliminate the loophole allowing a charter school to expand to additional grade levels outside the category that it was originally on. Yeah, you're right. That's repetitive.
So do we, I
Be it
prefer the
resolved.
first one.
I prefer the first one too. I just want to read the second one to make sure it is. Here's that the law should be strengthened so that no charter school can add grade levels outside of the grade levels that its category of school usually serves.
So the second paragraph and then which one?
The second page, third from the bottom.
I don't know if so there's, the law was amended to allow charters to expand beyond the grades they were authorized to serve at some point. I think it was like 2014 or 2011 or something like that.
Because it's only a 5-year.
I don't know if she's suggesting that she wants to eliminate that loophole, but I don't know if she also wants to strengthen it so that the current charters in existence can't expand.
At the very minimum, I would say like put those together and not, for the resolves apart, because isn't that part of the same thing?
It just depends on how quickly you want to vote on this.
Well, are we voting?
I don't know. No, we're not voting on this.
Okay.
Okay. So then we can go back to her and just say,
Is this the same?
is this the same?
Anybody else with any comments or questions?
I mean, they do sound redundant, but what does she mean by strengthening?
Yeah.
Like the first one seems more clear, eliminating the loophole.
Yeah, I think it's specifically about.
I think she's suggesting that it be retroactive so that the existing charters can't expand as well. So the first one, I think,
Law should be strengthened. One addresses the loopholes, one addresses new legislation.
Yeah.
but we'll go back to her and ask. All right.
So then I would want that first one that I talked about, the second one. Because you see how it says, be it resolved that the law shall require blah, blah. Like, I feel like that should just be written the same way. Be it resolved that the law should require that all charter schools must be legally obligated to adhere to the same disciplinary and suspension.
Wait, now you're on to the
Like she used this, be it resolved that the law shall or should, and like she used that over and over and over again, but not in that sentence. And that was why I was like, is that about the law or is it about NICEAD or what? So
Maybe we can
Here.
park this.
just that, like, it would just say that the law.
You just want it to, like, every single be it resolved to say the same thing, be it resolved that the law, okay. I mean, I don't know why she chose to write it that way. But you just want that consistently throughout, sort of where it makes sense.
Well, I just noticed it there. And then there's 3 asks for the comptroller specifically. Because when we're sending these resolutions, like, we need to make sure we're sending them to the right people.
Yes, there are 3 resolves that refer to the comptroller. Does anybody else have anything?
Doesn't the comptroller already have permission to do audits on, so why is that there? On the waiting list?
Which one are you referring to? He
The
did,
first one referring to.
the first comptroller, be it resolved that the law should be amended to allow the New York State comptroller. So the New York State, the New York State comptroller, a judge determined several years ago that the New York State comptroller doesn't have jurisdiction to audit New York City charters. And so the New York City comptroller doesn't have the resources to perform the number of audits necessary, because we have 80% of the state's charters here in New York City. So they want to enlist the resources of the state to aid in those audits. So
I think that the way you said that should have been in this.
I can't write everything.
Aren't charters under the oversight of the
SUNY and Regent, no.
Right.
SUNY authorizes some and Regents authorizes the others.
Right, but just for authorization, they don't monitor. the
They're
quality?
supposed to,
Okay, uh-huh,
they're supposed to do that.
okay, so.
I mean, when you have a revision, there is like a process that they go through. And if a family has a complaint, they are supposed to go to the state with their complaint. They don't get to go to the superintendent of their district because there's no superintendent.
But I mean, in terms of performance.
Yes, they do have to answer to SUNY in terms of their performance.
So this would be additional oversight.
You're talking about the comptroller?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What people talk.
yeah.
The way that I understand it with SUNY and their oversight is that the charters will do like a self-audit.
Right.
And then they'll send SUNY the paperwork.
Right.
And then that's what they're working off
Sure.
of, and then they'll go like
Historically,
for a
SUNY hasn't
walkthrough.
used their power to do anything.
Well, I mean, we heard from them that the law controls all of the moves that they make and that there's nothing that they can do.
They just follow the law. They just follow the letter of the charter law. That's it.
Right, but the letter of the law gives them oversight power over performance.
Yes.
Right.
We really do need to be.
Oh, yes, we do. Okay, so we're going to move on
So
to
we'll just like put this on the February.
February. Okay. All right, do you want to who wants to read the resolution on Lunar New Year? Anybody?
And do you want to read
Okay, so,
We'll have to go all the way there.
yeah, you kind of do. You do, you do. You do. On my back.
We should be able to go wireless.
I know. It's just.
It's music.
Perhaps I'm asking too much, right?
As much as we can.
Oh. Oh, yeah.
Right, resolution on Lunar New Year. Well, everything on top? Whereas Lunar New Year, it's an official holiday in New York City. Whereas Lunar New Year, it's a 15-day celebration. Whereas in 2022, the first day of Lunar New Year fell on a weekly, and the Department of Education appropriately acknowledged the holiday in the 2021 to 2022 school calendar. Whereas in 2023, the first day of Lunar New Year fell on Sunday, January 2022, and the DOE did not officially recognize the holiday nor assign a day off on the following Monday. Whereas the second day of Lunar New Year is considered the beginning of the year and spent with family. Whereas Lunar New Year is the most important cultural holiday for billions of people around the globe. And every year, almost 1.5 million residents from across New York City celebrate to honor their Asian heritage. Whereas the Asian population is over 16% of the total NYC student body. And whereas the DOE lack of recognition of this most important holiday for family of Asian heritage is not inclusive and disappointing. Therefore, be it resolved that the Department of Education recognize Lunar New Year as an official annual holiday across New York City public schools, according to the lunar calendar, and with a provision to observe the holiday on the following school day if the holiday fall on a weekend.
All right.
Some mine or yours? All right.
So thank you so much for elevating this issue and for drafting the resolution, Antonia. Thank you for elevating the issue, Vincent. It was something I also noticed and was very angry about, and glad that we can put this on paper and try to have the DOE recognize the importance of this holiday. And one thing that I think we talked about this before, but that the calendar is created with the DOE and the teachers union and others. And so those happen through contract negotiations. So like, we should not put all of the blame on the DOE, but just so you know, like that's happening in all different areas.
I heard that
But I think
there's a legislative bill on assembly. I don't have the exact real number, but I saw somewhere that they are trying to make it into a bill where to acknowledge the Lunar New Year on the city or state level as a day of holiday. So I don't know if you want to put in there, but this California looks good. So I think we'll see as they.
You want to add it? Add the bill.
we're not going to vote on this today, right?
I don't know, whatever you guys want to do. If you want to add the bill.
I think it's good.
Okay.
Can we vote on
Yeah,
it?
I think. I don't think.
But the only thing is we didn't post it as a vote.
We didn't, but all you have to do is get a certain, isn't it in the bylaws, you just, if a certain number of members say that we're gonna vote on a resolution, we just vote on the resolution, so.
Okay, motion to vote on the resolution. I'll make a motion to vote on the
All right,
resolution.
let me,
Okay, Vincent seconded.
Hold on, I gotta go back to my minutes here. Okay, so Camille
Just
made,
an effort to speak them, so we're all in favor.
we've never done that for a resolution. Who's seconding this one? This Vincent, okay. Camille, how do you vote?
I agree.
Okay, Antonio Ferraro, I approve this resolution. Tia Shellsteed,
I approve.
Vincent Liu,
Absolutely.
Nana Pokuajikum, Alfred DeAngelis, Joseph Alexander,
Approved.
Yvonne Bonda,
Approved.
Vanessa Uoka,
Approve.
and Nikki is not here. Okay, so it passes, the resolution passes, and if you could share that bill with us, then we can know who like the co-sponsors are and
Yeah,
sort of send it to them.
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
There's searching for it, but it's for the fund, but I'll look it up.
Thank you. Okay, Tia, you're next on the agenda with the third review of the draft bylaws.
I'm sorry, I haven't done anything. On the. Gotten to it. But I do feel like we had kind of left it up. It was kind of up in the air last time of whether we want to do this at all. Right?
Thought you were gonna have like some doc, or you were gonna like,
Right, I was gonna start a document to like add to this or whatever for us to discuss it. But,
I remember
not
you
do
two
that.
had some idea.
Vanessa had a really nice idea. It was conditioned on the last meeting. There was a paragraph at the bottom where you said if that resolution, in other words, pass the draft, right? But if we don't figure out what was happening in that last paragraph and the draft, then the resolution wouldn't take effect. Do you remember, Vanessa?
Oh, right.
And I thought that was a good idea.
So essentially saying that we agree with all the terms here, but we still have to decide on a limitation on what like an extraordinary circumstance would mean.
Right.
In if there are certain allotted allowances of absences under those extraordinary circumstances. So that we would look at that document separately by a certain deadline, and if we agreed on that, then we can just automatically like take effect.
And was it a document on extraordinary circumstances?
Yeah, I had
Exactly
extraordinary
was.
circumstances are vague.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah,
List would
right.
be extraordinary. We were gonna sort of clarify that paragraph. So in other words, we were gonna vote on this, and then it would only take effect if we later voted on the definition of what we believe to be.
Right. That's been the back and forth since what, November, like.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
What's
also,
an
I just haven't
extraordinary circumstance?
worked on it. I'm saying.
And we didn't do that because at the end of the day, like, this doesn't take effect until we figure out what extraordinary circumstances means. But then we'll have to, we can just like implement this immediately and as soon as, if we vote on this, as soon as that definition is settled.
So what would be the date for the list of extraordinary circumstances?
I mean, I don't think it's that complicated for us to come up with a.
Is it really good to pay from
If you want to take a
somebody get an excuse after, so I can just go with pretty much the school,
Yeah.
The real problem is gonna be who gets to call out.
Yeah.
The person who's can't vote
Right.
Unless there's a.
Like that
quorum.
was important.
So.
Because
if
So
I
that
feel
was the-
lazy one night and I wanna stay home.
Exactly.
Right, yeah, so who? Right,
So
we
why
still
don't we
need a
do like a-
quorum in person.
yes, that was the
Right,
reason.
that's gonna be pretty
Yeah,
tough to decide who gets to stay where they're.
Right, but like, if we decide, okay, there are two limitations, there are. A certain amount of times that you're allowed to say, this is an extraordinary circumstance, I am requesting an excused absence, and so you can't really like call it all the time. And the second limitation will be what the qualifications for an extraordinary circumstance is. So if you combine those two parameters, I think that we would reduce the likelihood that many people would at the same time call for the same excuse absence.
Can you only be allowed 3 extraordinary experiences, circumstances? in your
Well,
life?
you're not allowing,
agree.
you're not allowing them to have that many, but you're allowing them to claim. I mean, that put a limit there, I think makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Three sounds like a reasonable number, so I'm open to.
I guess I think it kind of undermines the whole idea of what extraordinary means, but. It's you know what I mean? 'Cause it's like, it's totally extraordinary, it's extraordinary.
But
But-
we are defining what.
But
extraordinary
you
is.
can't, like, you know, you can't judge.
Yeah.
Perhaps
What's
we can
extraordinary?
put some kind of requirement saying only if 6 members already confirm that they are able to attend. That way we have a quorum at least,
Yeah.
because
Ooh, that's a good idea.
How do you know?
These emergencies come up at the last minute.
Yeah.
We don't know who's walking in the door that day.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, you would not be able to attend, you know, in a hybrid way if there isn't quorum.
So,
You could attempt.
so how about this? Because I thought your idea was excellent, Lance, and I still think it's excellent. Why don't we could vote on this, or if there's any other changes, and then if this would only take effect once we straighten out the list of extraordinary circumstances, if we could figure that out. And then we can all contribute a list, should be, my opinion.
A checklist.
Should have
we
a,
can vote.
right, and then,
This one
then one by
has-
one,
this one
we can
doesn't.
agree to, for example, childcare issues, if we all agree it's extraordinary circumstances, yes or no, and then move on. Because that's like, for example, tonight we have somebody home with childcare issues, right? I saw, right, she has, a child has asthma, I do think that's extraordinary.
Right, yeah,
So,
like-
right.
So yes, I think. a
That's like, she
combination
get
of
a
that.
babysitter if my child is sick, like she's home in bed and I can attend on video conference, so I think that's
Mhm.
fair.
But we also
Just-
take
yeah.
into consideration, like, sometimes we do have childcare provided here, so we can't really use the childcare issue unless a parent attendance at home is necessary, like the child.
Yeah.
Yes, so we
It's
can
the
qualify, so we can
Yeah.
qualify that, okay, so I think together we can, if
Yeah.
we all come with a list, and we can qualify it to a point where we're all satisfied.
Yeah, especially we have a limit there, so most people will not just randomly use it. I mean, if you run out of limit, let's say 2 agree, then, you know, you can't really use it next time. So that put some kind of limitation there. For abuse, I
I
guess.
think it is.
Why don't
Yeah,
we
the
spend
quorum,
like,
the quorum is important, right?
Yeah.
So I think it should be after the fact, so, but the
Yeah,
person has to
yeah,
log
after
log on
quorum,
to
yeah.
Zoom, right? So right now, after the fact, we can say, okay, you know, and you're here, yeah, she's on Zoom, right? We're gonna count as part of the quorum because you're
Yeah.
quorum at that point.
Yeah,
So we can do that right at
Yeah.
that point. So,
because if it's extraordinary, you're not coming
Yeah.
regardless.
well,
So,
so
You
just
know-
log on Zoom and we're gonna determine at that point if we have quorum and, you know,
so why don't we do this? Can we spend 5 minutes just like putting together a list?
yeah,
Mhm.
Okay,
And now we have to change the bylaws too.
Yeah, the
Because there's something
circumstances.
here, there shall be no proxy or absentee voting by email or phone. So like there's
Yeah.
some in the bylaws that also have to change.
yeah, but that
That's
happens
part
after we
two.
pass the
Yeah.
resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right, but don't we need 3 sessions to change the bylaw?
I think bylaw has to come first.
Well, why don't you
Otherwise, you
enter the
conflict with
idea that
bylaw.
we will adapt the
Okay.
bylaws once this
yeah.
is voted.
I mean, that's what the process that base
Yeah.
gave us is we were supposed to do.
okay,
Yes.
so
Resolution, then bylaws.
are we in agreement that 3 absences are okay, or does anyone have? any
3
objections?
extraordinary circumstances,
3
sense.
in 1 year or 3 in the term?
3 in the term,
I think 3 in the term.
3 in 1 year. I mean,
think
it's like,
yeah.
that's
It's-
like 1 a month. I mean.
Yeah,
3 in the term?
okay, sure.
3 in a year isn't 1 a month.
Well, sure it is, because like you only have 4 months, well, I guess you, yeah. All right,
Yeah, we
never
have like
mind.
20-something
Never mind.
meetings,
We're talking
so-
about 2, both business and calendar, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, so 3,
3
3 excuse
Right.
absences.
per term?
Or 3 per year?
Term.
I'm sorry,
term.
That's 3 and over 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a way.
I was thinking 3 in a school year.
That's what I was thinking too.
Okay, yeah,
No. I
let's
was
do
thinking
that. 3 per year.
A 12-month, no, 12-month year. We're meeting.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
okay, 3 per year, fine.
How many year doesn't make sense because we go by school year.
Yeah.
But we
It
do
has to
meet
be
during the
school-
summer too.
Terms are 2 years, and I was like,
Okay.
that's
Okay, so
not very forgiving.
3 per
Well,
12 months or
yes, 3 per 12 months,
Okay,
calendar year.
calendar year. Okay, and
Just have 3 times.
what is an extraordinary circumstance? Like,
Ill-
everybody can,
illness- Illness, right? You're ill, but you're still able to attend. I think that's
yep,
right.
sounds good.
Mhm. Family illness too.
Yeah, that requires a parent to be home. Yeah, requires,
The member to be home.
yeah, the member to be.
And we'll go on the honor system, right? No doctors, no.
No, there's no point.
I'm curious, these are the excusable reasons, and you only have
I'm trying-
3. How many do you get? If you're just like, I'm phoning it, like, none of us have ever done that, but like, does that immediately? Your,
Well, you get 3
Censured.
absences, and then you get kicked off the council.
but I mean, what if? You get 3 excused ones, 3 that follow this criteria we're coming.
If they're excused, but you only get 3 unexcused.
I see, okay. I thought you were saying 3.
In the bylaws, it says you have 3 unexcused absences.
So limit, well, here, it says absences shall be noted as excused or unexcused as the case may be in the meeting minutes. And any written excuse tender shall be attached. After the 3rd unexcused absence,
I've done.
the president shall, at the next calendar meeting, present the resolution of the. Blah,
Yeah, you have
the-
3 unexcused.
The following shall constitute valid excuses for absence: death of a relative or attendance at a relative's funeral, serious illness or injury of the member or family member, mandatory court attendance, including jury duty, military duty, and job-related conflict, which makes absence from a council meeting unavoidable. If the council deems it appropriate, other absences may be excused by vote of the council. The council reserves the right to request documentary evidence of a member's excused absences. So that would all remain as it is. And so we would then add to that list.
Yeah, well, I think this is a separate list because this is the ability to participate remotely.
Yeah.
This
So
is
we would
not
use all
saying
those
you're
are
not
all good,
absent.
right.
You're not absent. You've had an extraordinary circumstance and you have to attend remotely.
Oh,
It's
Yeah.
not an
So it's
absence at
not
all.
Yeah.
Just
And we
try to
can use
ensure that
all
we
of
have-
those
Right.
also for, to, you know, we can just copy and paste those as the extraordinary
And then in
circumstances.
addition
In
to,
addition,
Reference back to a bylaw, we don't have to go into reference back.
well, I just mean for this part of the bylaws, because this is eventually gonna be in the bylaws.
So it's essentially 3
additional.
things, inability to attend because of a
Death.
jury duty and
death of a
military
family
service
member.
and work obligations that are unavoidable.
Yeah.
Then death
Yeah.
and then illness.
I think also.
I don't think work obligations were in
I
that
think-
list.
I think you should be able to attend virtually.
Yes, it might.
If you-
Attend virtually in extraordinary circumstances,
If you're at it.
That's-
as
Yeah.
mentioned above, and also. what else?
Oh, yes,
It's
you're right.
Job related conflict.
And we can agree that job-related conflict, maybe should be proven. I don't know. Because I mean,
How do you prove that?
like,
though?
what, some people have to travel for work, like, how are
But-
you going
I
to?
was gonna say, how
Yeah,
about out
but
of
like,
town?
I can't get my client.
Well, that's a
to write
job
me up
related
saying, like,
conflict,
oh, I
yeah.
But that's an excuse.
Mine's HIPAA.
Yeah,
Right,
what about
exactly.
vacation?
Vacation's not.
But can't you attend virtually?
In other words, that's family trip.
That's what we're talking about.
Like, would that be a circumstance that you're out of state?
No, because I feel, yes, but not for vacation. I feel like if you're traveling for work or a death in the family or something like that, yes, but not vacation.
Yeah,
Because
I don't,
vacation
I don't
is
think vacation.
you opt
Right.
in. So you can choose to go on vacation or not go on vacation. It's not extraordinary.
I mean, I think it's well defined, the way that it's put in the bylaws, that it's related to work obligations that are unavoidable if you're traveling for work.
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
You gotta remember, those bylaws were made way before we had the ability to join meetings virtually and upon advancement. So to say that a member who's interested in listening to the issues and giving input can't do it, is excused to be here. So he shouldn't show up at all or participate at all when he wants to. They should be able to.
Well, you just can't vote. You can't
You
vote.
just can't vote.
But and you're still absent.
To me, right.
You're still absent, even if you join Zoom, you can't.
Yeah,
It's still an excused absence.
yeah. And I think,
It's an excuse.
I think what Alfred is.
It's an excused absence.
Yeah, Alfred, I think, is saying that like a lot of what we're talking about is predicated on like
Pre-COVID.
rules where we would have thought doing that was ridiculous. Like, there's no way you could have a meeting from a computer. Like
Mhm.
4 years ago, we would all.
Yeah.
Well, like 8 years ago.
But you split versus. That's all right.
People were not able to join and they would call in and we would just put them on speaker. And so they would still be participating. They just weren't
Couldn't vote.
allowed to vote.
And
And
are they
so we
absent?
did that.
Are they excused absent or they are, what do you count them as? Is a call?
I mean.
It's up to the
we
president.
counted them as
So
president.
if-
It's up
If
to the
if I'm
president.
away with my family and I said, hey, you know what, guys, stay here for a second, I'm gonna go join CEC for a second, and then I'm not allowed to vote. I get I am allowed to participate and stuff. That would almost encourage me to say, I'm gonna take an excused absence,
Yeah.
I'm on vacation, forget it. I'm not even gonna go listen.
But that's true, because when I was back
Right.
in Ghana, it's like,
You
it
almost
was like 2
penalize
a.m.
the
at
person
night,
that wants to join.
right? And
Right.
Ghana's when I joined, I'm
Conversation.
not, I'm gonna miss.
No, but the thing is, we could, even if it's not in here. For
Hi.
example, one of them said,
When you leave in,
have some pizza.
front is closed.
Okay,
Thank you.
Back steps. So you can just go here at the back. Gotcha.
thank you.
Food. Yes, no.
All right, so it sounds
If
like,
it's not here, someone on vacation could say, I really want to participate. Could we vote to have an excuse absence or whatever that whole thing is? Could we vote for so that I could participate? I would.
And that person could vote still, even if they're remote? Could vote on resolutions?
I mean, we could.
I have
just decide-
trouble with the inconsistency of the popularity of a member or something.
yeah. Oh, yeah,
factor.
totally.
And I think it's just not, it wouldn't
Yes,
be
yeah,
a consistently enforceable.
because the general meeting, I really wanted to come, and I had to do everything online. because I
Yeah.
forget.
If none of us like like. Don't want out that
No.
week, like it would, yeah, it would open us up to like.
Look, it didn't even work on the computer and
Yeah.
sitting my booth, and the SCU.
I'm just worried you're not gonna get quorum in July and August.
That's why I like, another thing is you can only have it if there's quorum. Otherwise you can't vote.
But how do you know if you're gonna get quorum?
You don't know, because you're already taking your extraordinary circumstance, whether you get to vote or not. Right? You can't come because it's
Okay.
extraordinary.
Okay,
So, but once we get here and there's quorum, then yes, you can vote. You can take your,
People
you know.
are not wasting their time, you can actually participate, and we're gonna decide if, you can vote on that. So
That's
it gives
what
people
we're gonna do,
motivation
what
to
you're
show up
saying.
as well. Right? Because
oh, I see.
Yeah.
you counted as president, so yeah, we'll just show up and see what
Yeah.
happens.
The thing that's really
Okay.
unnerving me is
All
like,
right.
I don't know if we've ever had a meeting where we didn't have a quorum anyway. And so-
Yeah, we
We
have.
just
Yeah, we
did.
just
No,
did. You
you
were
were-
there.
Just two
Your
of us.
fault.
No, we took.
But we don't, that's why you don't remember it.
The one before Christmas, we had no quorum.
the only.
We have 5 minutes left. Looks like we need more time. Please. Can I have that 5 minutes for the new business?
Yes, I have you
Yeah.
on I have you here.
Yeah, because looks like we're gonna have another
Okay,
10-20 minutes on this discussion. I might have give that 5 minutes for.
Okay, wait, but are we voting?
Right?
no, I don't think we're
No.
voting.
Let's just get it done. I'll,
Well, I started writing notes in the bylaws.
Yeah.
Just copying it.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Vincent. So
Uh,
we're moving to new business.
Do I have access to the mic?
Oh, do you want to sit over
you can
here?
sit here.
Yeah, maybe I can sit there. I'll just, I'll bring my phone. Just want to bring awareness what happened to the PS1 parents. So what happened was I was reached out by one of the PS1 parents. She's kind of new immigrant, doesn't speak English, doesn't even know how to navigate system. When I told her about the CEC meeting, she doesn't know anything at all. So she's very, very new. And she reached out to me after I saw a video where her child was attacked by 3 other kids. I was literally that video, I don't know if that video went on the Twitter or what, but it was widely circulated on the WeChat group. 3 kids surrounding one, and her child was like lying on the floor, and the other kid was stepping on him. It was like every time I watched that video, it hurt myself. And she told me that every time she watched it, it hurt her as well. And what happened was with that was the second incident already. On the first incident, that incident happened on just outside of the school, right? On the first incident, her child was inside the school being pushed to a pole, and in that incident, her child was taken to hospital. Right? I mean, that happened within 30 days of one another. When I spoke to her, I was like, wow. It's just horrible. And for that second incident, she didn't know, she didn't get informed by the school. She find out when she watched the video. I was like, how could that happen? School should have informed her on the day. She found out the second day, and her child was very hesitant to even inform his parent. I was like, oh my God, yeah, he was attacked by 3 kids, and when one of the kids attacked, he's 5th grade, so maybe 10 years old. So when I watched the video, I don't know, you probably don't see it was circulated in the which I don't know if it went on. I don't know if it went on the other social media, but I watched so many times, and one of the kids was chanting like a racial slur against him. And then when he was stepping on him, it was crazy. But basically, so what happened was
What time is this meeting supposed to be over?
In 5 minutes.
in 5 minutes. I'm trying to utilize that 5 minutes most efficiently.
Because I leave at 8:30.
Oh,
That's my time, 8:30.
Yeah.
okay.
So I'm not gonna go past 8:30. So
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap it out in like two seconds, 2 sentences. Yeah. So my question is, if there was, so first of all, I don't know if she doesn't know either if there was a incident report being filed. So if there was incident report being filed, does the parents, us, should be informed about the incident report, or which the school just don't inform us? Do you know anything about this?
I don't, but this, maybe you can guide her to the superintendent. This sounds like something that needs to be. Like she needs a special meeting with
Yeah.
Alvarez.
And if
and
I'm
the principal
considering
of the
that
school.
there is a bullying, like a direct.
There is a, yes.
Reporting, you maybe help her register for DOE accounts, because it's on her DOE
You can do
account.
it through 311.
You can do 311.
where's the principal involved? What is the school doing?
She said, I believe that she told me was the only thing school did was have the kid apologize to each other without her even be present there. So she doesn't even know if it actually happened. That's what she was being told. So I feel like it's, she's very disconnected from everything
I think the school
happened.
should be held accountable.
Yeah, that's how it's.
Did
Yeah.
this happen during recess?
It was
or-
I think it was during the morning when kids waiting outside the school. That's
So,
second
like,
incident.
in the schoolyard.
I don't know if I think maybe maybe outside of school and school, I saw, I think it was school wall, maybe outside of school, so. But anyway, I feel that she should be better informed. Regardless whose fault is it, but she should be better informed.
And you said you took her to the police.
Yeah, I went with her to the police precinct, and she has to go back second time because the kids has to be there. They asked the kid to go. And even now, she's still waiting for the police report. Her child, she's still waiting for the police report. I just talked to her, and she said that she feels sick because she couldn't attend it. So I feel like, oh, that's fine. I'll try to speak for her.
If you want to introduce us to, like, or you just make an appointment with Alvarez,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, well, she was
clearly
thinking about
needs-
waiting for police report, but it seemed like just taking forever.
No,
yeah.
she's gonna get much better service if she just goes to the superintendent, and the police aren't gonna.
That's
police
She
aren't
went to
gonna-
multiple times, but the thing is, yeah, not, principal, yes. How she feel was, it just feel that they just want to, like, sweep under the rug, handle it very quietly, stuff like this. That's why I'm concerned, because if they just get on the incident report,
Yeah.
you don't see on a number, you don't see on the statistic,
Yeah.
just like as if it never happened, despite her child was like got beaten twice already.
Yeah.
When I saw it, it really bothers me.
Yeah, that's the most.
It really bothers me if stuff like this happen.
Very
Did she
disturbing.
show the police the video?
Yes,
They're not.
yeah.
They
Because,
wouldn't believe the video.
please. I'm not.
Okay, maybe we should end this,
That far.
maybe we should end the meeting publicly and,
Yeah.
Christine, hello, Christine.
oh, Christine has something to say. Hold on, let me,
Christine
Here.
Farrell.
okay. Yeah, hi, everyone. I just wanted to say that the DOE has clearly defined protocols and regulations around things like this, Vincent. And also the parent has clearly defined rights. The best thing to do is, as everyone said, is reach out to our superintendent's office. You might want to have the parent contact Brenda Diaz, Miss Diaz, directly, because that's ultimately who they'll put in charge of taking a look at what happened. And she's entitled to the incident report from the school. A lot of the information will be redacted, like the other students' names and things like that. But the school should have done an investigation and an incident report, particularly if there's a report of bullying. Right. So, and she can report bullying through 311 by coming to the superintendent, by going in, creating and going to a NICS account if she doesn't have one, any way that she does it. And this is definitely bullying. It's happening more than once. There's a pattern here. So, and my office will clearly definitely follow up with the school's response as well, and also provide support to the parent to explain to her what her options are. To get some kind of action on this, or to see if she feels that a safety transfer is necessary.
I see.
Yeah.
Just one quick question. Do you know if parents should be informed, like, if there was a incident report being filed, or well, that's not part of the process?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't hear the whole thing.
If there was a incident report being filed, does
Yes,
parents get informed or get a
They- yeah.
copy of the report?
Yes, they should be informed, and they're entitled to a copy of the report.
They have to ask for it, or they don't?
Yes, they do have to ask for it. They won't be given it automatically. They do have to ask for it. I mean, some principals will give it automatically, but they're not required to.
I see, but for the report, they have to ask for it, but would parents be informed about the report being filed?
Right. It depends upon the circumstances. Yeah. But if this isn't something ongoing, and this the school, especially after the school was informed of the video and things like that, definitely they should have offered the report.
Mhm. Yeah, she, the only, she was kind of warned by the school that not to share the video.
Well,
I mean, she has the video, so there are people sharing the video.
But
yeah.
Yet it's like someone else is showing.
Someone else taking it, but someone else sharing with it. But it's wildly circulated yeah. Anyway, thanks for the information.
Yeah, I'm going to drop Brenda's email in the chat. So if you need it.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. All right. Can we adjourn the meeting at 8:35?
Yeah.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Good night.
Interpretation, you're dismissed. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone.